Pay very close attention to what I'm about to share because this is not just another piece of advice you can ignore and move on from. What you're about to hear could genuinely protect your life or the life of someone close to you. The reality is, there are dangers that don't come with warning signs, no loud symptoms, no dramatic signals, just quiet, steady damage happening in the background while you feel completely fine. And the truth is, most doctors don't talk about this during routine checkups. Not because it isn't important, but because it happens silently, often outside the moments when you're sitting in a clinic. What I'm about to explain is something that takes place at night, in the dark, when you're asleep and unaware, and it is responsible for taking lives every single night. I want to tell you about someone I knew personally, a retired school teacher named Harold, 71 years old, living in Columbus, Ohio. Harold wasn't someone who appeared sick. He wasn't complaining of chest pain. He wasn't showing clear warning signs. And on the night before everything changed, he went to bed feeling completely normal. There was no indication that anything was wrong. But the next morning, his wife found him unresponsive. By the time emergency services arrived, it was already too late. He had passed away in his sleep due to a massive cardiac event. No struggle, no clear signal, just gone. And when I took the time to look deeper into what had been happening in Harold's life during the months leading up to that night, I discovered something that had been completely missed during his routine care. It wasn't one dramatic issue. It was a pattern, a set of everyday habits that seemed harmless, but were quietly placing strain on his heart, thickening his blood, and increasing his risk of stroke and sudden death. The unsettling part is this: millions of older adults are doing these same things right now, tonight, without realizing the damage being done. This isn't speculation. A large study published in the European Journal tracked more than 84,000 adults between the ages of 60 and 80 over a period of 9 years. What researchers found was deeply concerning. Individuals who followed certain nighttime habits had a 67% higher risk of dying from cardiovascular causes during sleep compared to those who made small, targeted adjustments to their evening routines. Think about that number for a second. 67%. That's not a minor increase. That's the difference between waking up the next morning and not waking up at all. And yet, many people dismiss this kind of information because they feel fine. They say, I sleep well, I don't have symptoms, this doesn't apply to me. But that mindset is exactly what makes these conditions so dangerous. The most serious health risks don't always announce themselves. They develop quietly over time, like corrosion building inside a pipe where you can't see it, until one day the damage becomes too much and everything fails at once. Today, I'm going to walk you through 6 specific habits that older adults need to stop doing before bed. We'll go step by step, starting from number 6 and moving down to number 1. And I need you to stay with me all the way through because each one becomes more important as we go. In fact, number 2 on this list is something that even surprised me when I first examined the research behind it. And chances are many of you are doing it without even realizing it. Missing even one of these could have serious consequences. But before we go further, I want to hear from you. Take a moment to leave a comment sharing your age and whether you've ever woken up in the middle of the night with your heart racing or feeling short of breath. I read those responses carefully, and they help shape the kind of information I bring to you. Now, let's move forward and begin with number 6, because this is one habit that seems completely harmless on the surface, yet it has a much bigger impact than most people realize. Eating a large meal within 2 hours of going to bed is something millions of people do every night without a second thought. It feels normal, even comforting, whether it's a late dinner, a heavy snack, or finishing leftovers before going to sleep. But inside your body, a very different process is unfolding. When you consume a large meal, your digestive system immediately demands a significant increase in blood flow to break down and absorb that food. This means your heart has to work harder, pushing more blood toward your stomach and intestines. For younger individuals, this added workload is usually manageable. But as we age, the body doesn't respond the same way. Research from the University of Sao Paulo has shown that in adults over the age of 65, the stress placed on the heart after eating can raise blood pressure by an average of 22 points and keep the heart rate elevated for up to 3 hours. Now, consider what happens if that process overlaps with sleep. Your body is already in a vulnerable, resting state, and yet your cardiovascular system is being forced to stay active and under pressure. On top of that, there's another issue that often goes unnoticed: acid reflux and its connection to heart rhythm. When you lie down with a full stomach, stomach acid can more easily move upward into the esophagus. This becomes even more likely as the valve that normally keeps that acid contained weakens with age, especially after 70. That upward movement of acid can stimulate a nerve called the vagus nerve, which plays a role in regulating heart rhythm. In some individuals, this can trigger irregular heartbeats, creating an additional layer of risk during sleep. The good news is that this is one of the simplest problems to fix. You don't need complicated treatments or medications. Just finish your last full meal at least 3 hours before going to bed. If you do feel genuinely hungry later in the evening, keep it light and easy to digest. Something small like a few walnuts or half a banana is enough. And one more powerful adjustment: take a short walk after dinner. Even 10 minutes can make a measurable difference. Studies from the University of Limerick have shown that a brief walk after eating can reduce blood sugar spikes by 28% and significantly ease the workload on your heart during the night. This single change, starting tonight, can begin to reduce strain on your cardiovascular system right away. Now let's move to number 5, because this is where things begin to get even more surprising and in many cases completely overlooked. This is not about something you're eating or an obvious lifestyle choice. It's about timing, something so subtle that most people never question it. In fact, nearly 60% of adults over the age of 70 are doing this every single day without realizing that a small adjustment could dramatically reduce their risk of serious cardiovascular events. I'm talking about when you take your blood pressure medication. For years, the standard routine has been simple: wake up in the morning and take your medication with breakfast. It feels logical, it fits neatly into a daily habit, and for many people, it becomes automatic. But recent research has revealed that this common approach may not be the most effective way to protect your heart. A major study published in the European Heart Journal followed more than 19,000 patients over a 6-year period, and what researchers discovered was striking. Those who took their blood pressure medication at bedtime instead of in the morning experienced a 45% lower risk of heart attack, a 49% lower risk of heart failure, and an incredible 66% lower risk of stroke. These are not small improvements. These are life-changing differences, and they all come down to how your body behaves during the night. To understand this, you need to know about something called nocturnal hypertension. This refers to a pattern where blood pressure rises during the early morning hours, typically between 3 and 6 a.m. This is not a random fluctuation. It's a critical window of time when the body transitions out of deep sleep and prepares to wake up, and it is also the period when the majority of heart attacks and strokes occur. Now, think about what happens if you take your medication in the morning. The drug reaches its peak effectiveness during the middle of the day when your body is already active and less vulnerable, and by the time you enter those early morning hours, its effects may be wearing off. That leaves a gap in protection exactly when your cardiovascular system needs it the most. On the other hand, when the same medication is taken at night, its peak action aligns with that high-risk window, providing stronger control over blood pressure during those critical hours. It's a simple shift, but one that can make a profound difference. That said, this is not something you should change on your own without guidance. Every medication works differently, and some need to be taken with food or at specific times for safety reasons. The important step here is awareness. Bring this information to your doctor, ask the question, and have a conversation about what timing is right for your situation. That discussion alone could be one of the most important steps you take for your long-term health. And what makes this even more powerful is how it connects directly with the next habit on our list. Because when these two are combined, their benefits don't just add up, they multiply. That brings us to number 4, something I often refer to as the silent dehydration trap. This is one of the most underestimated risks for people over the age of 65, and it comes from a habit that seems completely reasonable on the surface. Many older adults intentionally reduce how much water they drink in the evening to avoid waking up during the night to use the bathroom. It makes sense. No one wants their sleep interrupted multiple times. But what happens inside the body as a result of this decision is far more serious than most people realize. As we age, the body's ability to regulate fluids begins to change. The kidneys become less efficient at concentrating urine, and the natural sense of thirst becomes weaker. This process is controlled by a region of the brain called the hypothalamus. And after about age 60, its signals become less reliable. Research from the Human Performance Laboratory at the University of Connecticut has shown that older adults can become significantly dehydrated without ever feeling thirsty. That means you may go to bed believing your body has enough fluid, when in reality, it doesn't. Now, here's where the real danger appears. When your body is dehydrated during sleep, your blood becomes thicker and more viscous. Imagine the difference between water flowing easily through a pipe and something thicker like syrup moving through the same space. That increased thickness forces your heart to work harder to keep blood circulating, placing extra strain on your cardiovascular system during a time when it should be resting and recovering. At the same time, thicker blood has a higher tendency to form clots. This is one of the key mechanisms behind strokes. A study published in the American Journal of Epidemiology found that adults over 65 who were even mildly dehydrated at bedtime had blood viscosity levels similar to those seen just before a thrombotic stroke. That's how serious this becomes. The solution is not to drink a large amount of water right before going to bed, because that will simply lead to frequent trips to the bathroom and disrupt your sleep. Instead, the goal is to hydrate strategically. About 2 hours before bedtime, drink a full glass of water that includes electrolytes, particularly potassium and magnesium. These minerals help your body retain the right balance of fluids without overloading your bladder. You can also support this by including potassium-rich foods earlier in the day, such as a small sweet potato or a few dried apricots. These help maintain hydration levels more consistently through the night. Magnesium, in particular, provides an additional benefit by helping to relax the walls of your blood vessels, which can naturally lower blood pressure while you sleep. When these elements are in balance, your cardiovascular system is better supported and your body is able to move through the night with less strain. These may seem like small adjustments, but they create a protective effect that builds over time, reducing risk in a way that is both simple and powerful. Now we move into number 3, and this is where the conversation becomes more personal, because this is a habit I see again and again, and it's one that people rarely suspect is causing harm. I remember a patient of mine named Dorothy, 78 years old, living in Tucson, Arizona. She came to me after experiencing her second minor stroke within a span of just 18 months. On paper, everything looked right. She was taking her medications exactly as prescribed, she stayed moderately active, and her diet was reasonably balanced. There were no obvious red flags that explained why these events kept happening. But when I asked her a simple question about her evening routine, everything became clear. Every single night, without exception, Dorothy would lie in bed for 2 to 3 hours scrolling through her tablet. She would read the news, check social media, watch family videos, all with the screen just inches away from her face. To her, it felt like a harmless way to relax before sleep, something millions of people do every day. What she didn't realize was that this habit was quietly disrupting her body's ability to protect itself night after night. The science behind this is both clear and concerning. The light emitted from screens, especially the blue wavelength, directly interferes with the production of melatonin. Most people think of melatonin simply as the hormone that helps you fall asleep, but its role goes much deeper than that. Researchers at Brigham and Women's Hospital, which is affiliated with Harvard Medical School, have shown that melatonin plays a critical role in maintaining cardiovascular health. It acts as a powerful antioxidant, protecting the inner lining of your blood vessels, known as the endothelium, from oxidative damage. This damage is one of the main drivers of plaque buildup, stiffening of the arteries, and eventually heart attacks and strokes. When melatonin levels are suppressed, that protective barrier is weakened. In older adults, this effect becomes even more serious. By the time you reach your 70s, natural melatonin production has already declined by as much as 75% compared to younger individuals. So when you add prolonged screen exposure at night, You're not just slightly reducing melatonin, you're significantly lowering what little protection remains. A study published in the Journal of the American College of Cardiology found that consistent exposure to light during nighttime hours was associated with a 43% increase in major cardiovascular events among older adults. That is a substantial risk increase for something that many people consider harmless. Dorothy made a simple but disciplined change. She set a strict boundary: no screens after 8 p.m. It wasn't easy at first, but she committed to it. Within 6 weeks, she reported that her sleep felt deeper and more restorative than it had in years. After 4 months, her lab results showed a significant drop in inflammation, including a reduction of more than 30% in her C reactive protein levels, which is a key marker of cardiovascular inflammation. Since making that change, she has not experienced another cardiac event. This is the kind of impact a single habit can have when it's corrected. If you take one thing from this, let it be this: stop using screens at least 2 hours before bedtime. It's one of the most effective ways to support your heart and your overall health during the night. Now we move to number 2, and this is the one that surprises most people because it challenges something that feels completely natural. Sleeping on your back might seem comfortable, even recommended in some situations, but for many older adults, it can quietly increase cardiovascular risk in a significant way. Before you dismiss this idea, it's important to understand what happens inside the body when you lie flat on your back during sleep. Gravity causes the tongue and soft tissues in the throat to fall backward, which can partially or completely block the airway. This is the primary mechanism behind obstructive sleep apnea, a condition that affects an estimated 50% of adults over the age of 65. What makes this even more concerning is that the majority of people with sleep apnea have never been diagnosed. During these episodes, breathing briefly stops, sometimes dozens or even hundreds of times in a single night. Each time this happens, the brain responds as if the body is in danger. It triggers a surge of stress hormones, particularly cortisol and adrenaline, forcing the body to react. Blood pressure spikes sharply, heart rate becomes unstable, and then a cycle repeats again and again throughout the night. These interruptions are often so brief that you don't fully wake up, so you may have no idea it's happening. But over time, this repeated stress places enormous strain on the cardiovascular system. The American Heart Association has officially recognized untreated sleep apnea as a major independent risk factor for high blood pressure, irregular heart rhythms, heart attacks, and strokes. Research published in the journal Circulation found that individuals with moderate to severe sleep apnea had a 58% higher risk of fatal cardiac arrhythmias during sleep. This is one of the reasons why people who appear otherwise healthy can pass away quietly during the night. If you share a bed with someone, ask them if they've noticed loud snoring or pauses in your breathing while you sleep. If you sleep alone, you can record yourself overnight using a simple voice recording app. The signs are often easy to detect once you know what to look for. One of the simplest and most effective changes you can make is to sleep on your side instead of your back. In particular, sleeping on your left side can reduce pressure on the heart and improve circulation. You can use a body pillow behind your back to help maintain that position throughout the night. For those who have been diagnosed with sleep apnea, using a CPAP machine is not optional. It is life-saving. It may feel uncomfortable at first, but the benefits far outweigh the inconvenience. Ignoring it only allows the damage to continue. These are not small adjustments. They are critical decisions that directly affect how your body functions during its most vulnerable hours. Now we arrive at number 1, and this is where everything comes together in a way that most people never fully recognize. This isn't about food, medication, timing, hydration, or even sleep position alone. This is deeper, more persistent, and far more powerful in shaping your health than any single habit we've discussed so far. The most dangerous bedtime habit for seniors, the one that quietly amplifies every other risk, is chronic, unresolved emotional stress carried into the hours before sleep. I want you to think honestly about your typical evening. What does that time look like for you when the day slows down? Do you spend it watching news filled with conflict, politics, crime, and constant negativity? Do you find yourself lying in bed, replaying conversations, worrying about your health, your finances, your family, or things that haven't even happened yet? Do your thoughts keep circling the same concerns over and over again without resolution? If that sounds familiar, then you are experiencing something researchers at the University of California, Berkeley describe as rumination before rest. And despite how common it is, its effect on your cardiovascular system is severe and often underestimated. The body does not distinguish sharply between physical threats and psychological ones. When your mind is under stress, your body reacts as if it is in danger. It releases stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline, the same chemicals triggered during those apnea episodes we just discussed. But here's the difference. Instead of short bursts, these hormones remain elevated for extended periods when stress is ongoing. When this happens in the evening, it disrupts one of the most important natural processes your body relies on during sleep, something called nocturnal dipping. In a healthy system, blood pressure naturally drops by about 10 to 20% during sleep, giving your heart and blood vessels time to recover from the demands of the day. This drop is not optional, it is essential. It is how your cardiovascular system resets and prepares for the next day. But when stress levels remain high into the night, this drop either becomes much smaller or doesn't happen at all. Your heart continues working harder than it should, even while you're asleep. Over time, this constant strain accelerates damage to blood vessels, increases inflammation, and raises the risk of serious events like heart attacks and strokes. A long-term study conducted over 20 years involving both the American Heart Association and researchers from Johns Hopkins University found that adults who reported high levels of nighttime worry and chronic evening stress had a 72% higher lifetime risk of fatal cardiovascular events compared to those who maintained lower stress levels in the evening. That is a significant difference, and it becomes even more pronounced after the age of 70, when the body's ability to regulate cortisol has already declined by roughly 40%. This is not a small influence on your health. It is a major driver of outcomes. When I think back to Harold, the friend I mentioned earlier, it becomes clear that it wasn't one single factor that led to what happened. It was the accumulation of multiple habits, the late meals, the dehydration, the screen exposure, the sleep position, but underneath all of that was something less visible. He carried stress every single night. He worried about his retirement finances quietly, without sharing it with anyone. His body never fully entered a state of rest. His cardiovascular system never received the recovery time it needed, and eventually that ongoing strain took its toll. The important thing to understand is that addressing this does not require complicated treatments or dramatic life changes. What it requires is intention and consistency. About 30 minutes before going to bed, create a simple routine that allows your body to transition out of that heightened state. Turn off the news, step away from screens, and give your mind a chance to settle. One effective approach is to write down 3 things that went well during your day. This may sound simple, but research from the Greater Good Science Center at UC Berkeley has shown that this practice can measurably lower cortisol levels within about 20 minutes. It shifts your focus away from stress and toward a more balanced perspective. Another powerful tool is controlled breathing, specifically the 4-7-8 technique. Inhale slowly for 4 seconds, hold your breath for 7 seconds, and then exhale gradually for 8 seconds. This pattern activates the parasympathetic nervous system, which is responsible for calming the body, reducing heart rate, and lowering blood pressure. If prayer or meditation is part of your life, this is the time when it becomes most beneficial, not just emotionally, but physically. It provides a structured way to release tension and signal to your body that it is safe to rest. You can also support this process with magnesium glycinate, taken in a dose of about 200 to 400 milligrams, roughly 30 minutes before bed. This specific form of magnesium is known for its ability to cross into the brain and help regulate the nervous system. At the same time, it relaxes the walls of blood vessels, supporting healthier blood pressure levels during sleep. Studies from the National Institutes of Health have shown that it can reduce nighttime cortisol levels and improve sleep quality in adults over 65 by as much as 39%. Think of this entire routine as a way of gently guiding your body into a state where true recovery can happen. It is not about perfection. It is about creating the conditions your body needs to function properly during the night. Now, I want to leave you with something that I share with every patient I speak to, no matter their age or condition, because it's one of the most important truths you can hold on to. It is never too late to change the direction of your health. That is not just encouragement meant to sound good, it is grounded in biology. The human body, even in its later years, still has a remarkable ability to repair, adapt, and respond when we remove the pressures that are holding it back, whether someone is 70, 75, 80, or even 85. Those systems are still capable of improving when given the right conditions. Your heart is not looking for perfection, it is looking for support. It wants to continue beating steadily for many more years. Your brain is designed to remain sharp, to stay engaged, to keep processing the world clearly. Your body still wants to move, to carry you through your daily life, to take you to the moments that matter, whether that's spending time with your family, walking through your garden, or simply enjoying a quiet evening on your porch. All of the habits we've talked about today are not abstract ideas or long term goals that you might get to someday. They are practical changes that you can begin implementing immediately, stopping late night heavy meals, discussing the timing of your medication with your doctor, maintaining proper hydration, reducing exposure to screens in the evening, adjusting your sleep position, and protecting your mental and emotional state before bed. Each one of these steps is within your reach starting tonight. You don't need to wait for a new week, a new month, or a major life event to begin. The opportunity is already in front of you. And it's important to recognize something else as well. You didn't reach this stage of life by being fragile. You got here because you are resilient. You have already navigated challenges, adapted to changes, and continued moving forward through different phases of life. That same resilience is what allows you to make these adjustments now. The people around you, your family, your friends, those who care about you, they don't just want you to be alive. They want you to be present, aware, engaged, and able to share in the moments that matter. These habits are not just about extending life, they are about protecting the quality of that life. They help ensure that your time is not limited by preventable issues, that your energy is not drained by avoidable strain, and that your health supports the life you want to live rather than holding you back from it. Every small decision you make in the evening contributes to how your body functions through the night, and those nights add up over time. The difference between ongoing strain and proper recovery is built step by step, habit by habit. All of the scientific studies mentioned throughout this discussion are available for you to review, and I strongly encourage you to take a look at them if you want to understand the evidence more deeply. And if this information has been useful to you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who matters to you, a spouse, a sibling, a friend, because you never know who might benefit from making one of these changes. Sometimes the right information at the right moment can make a difference that you can't immediately see, but that becomes clear over time. And if you haven't already, take a moment to subscribe to this channel. We continue to share content focused on helping you maintain your health, stay informed, and make decisions that support your well-being in a practical and realistic way. This is not about fear, it's about awareness and action. Your body is still capable, your heart is still working for you every single day, and the choices you make now can help ensure that it continues to do so for many years to come.